All right, welcome everyone. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Hawaii Retirement Show. Today we got a special guest. We're doing a little Beyond the Numbers episode here. We got Kaipo Crowell. Really excited to talk to him. He's a great follow on LinkedIn, and that's kind of what inspired me to bring him on here. For those that don't know, Kaipo spent, is it 38 years of federal service, Kaipo?
38 years.
Okay, 38 years at Pearl Harbor Naval Shipyard. You served in multiple roles, but I guess most notably would be your last role as the appointed nuclear engineering and planning manager, and serving as the shipyard's senior civilian. So that's a very important role. And and yeah, we're happy to have you on. We're going to talk about some of your LinkedIn posts, but I'll kick it to you first. We had you on a couple years ago, and it was a great conversation then. But what have you been up to lately, or anything you want to share with the audience?
So, Jason, before we start, how long have you been doing this podcast or
Uh,
this YouTube?
yeah, so I guess 2 years and a few months.
Oh, cool. And how's it been going?
Yeah, it's going really well. Slowly but surely, just building out an audience. I think we provide a
Yeah,
lot of good content. We've had some good guests on lately.
yeah,
Uh,
I saw a few of them.
yeah, and there's a couple more down the line coming. So, I mean, I enjoy it. I think we'll get to one of your posts here, one of your comments about how, I think there's a lacking of financial education out there.
Yes, yeah,
I
yeah,
think, and I don't want to sound like, the old guy that's saying young people don't get it, but I think we gotta, the earlier you catch on to this stuff,
yep,
you just put yourself in a much better position.
absolutely. Yeah, that's spot on. And I'm fortunate that my wife is pretty akamai on
Hmm.
financial management, so she kind of she kind of put us in a good place. But I've been retired 4 years now, and you know, I miss the shipyard. I don't miss the grind.
Yeah.
I miss the mission. The mission was great. The people were even better. So I stay in touch a lot with the shipyard. But my primary focus right now has been, how do I influence my grandkids? Because four of them live in the mainland,
Hmm.
two in Long Beach, two in Mission Viejo. So we travel at least once a month for 7 to 10 days at a crack, just so that we can spend time with them, kind of influence them on our values and kind of being able to be grandparents and spoil them
Hmm.
and then send them back to their parents. But that's my primary kind of where I put my energy in. Yeah, and I wish I learned this sooner. I'm very intentional of where I spend my energy.
Hmm.
And so that's probably like my priority is how do I influence and inspire my grandkids. But I stay pretty active in the community in the past 4 years. I've been active. I'm a board member on the Navy League, and the Navy League is great because I get to stay in touch with the Navy needs and support the Marines, the Coast Guard, um, the Navy. It's just a great organization. I'm also involved with the nationwide shipbuilding um, research program. So it's really, helping the private shipyards on how we can get better in building ships.
Hmm.
Um, but mostly I stay active in some workforce development and some economic development kind of efforts. So
Gotcha.
workforce development definitely for our maritime industrial base here in Hawaii.
Hmm.
Building trades,
Hmm.
machinists, pipe fitters, electricians, primarily for ship maintenance. And I don't know if you've seen, but we just opened up at HCC a new course, new manufacturing center there at the Hawaii Community College to start training these trades um, and really, you know, try to advance manufacturing here in Hawaii so that we don't have to, depend on the mainland for parts or materials, and we can do more manufacturing here. And there's a lot of interest of being the center of excellence in additive and, you know, advanced manufacturing. And University of Hawaii is really pushing to be the center of excellence for additive manufacturing. So I'm staying involved now in those efforts with, my fingers in a bunch of other consulting efforts, primarily to help the DoD and to help economic development here in Hawaii. One of my real goals is to, do whatever we can, find opportunities to keep the Hawaii kids home in Hawaii to work.
Sure.
And, let's not have that term, priced out of paradise anymore.
Mm.
Let's change our mindset and think of new economic development areas and not only depend on tourism or not only depend on the Department of Defense, but become center of excellence here in the Pacific so that, you know, countries and organizations want to come to Hawaii because we are the center of excellence. So that's what I'm really kind of working on. So
Yeah.
like I said, I've been spending, I'm very intentional on my energy, and it's usually in the areas of faith, family, fitness, finances, friends, and future, which is kind of building for the future. And then of course experiences are fun. So that's really what I've been doing. I'm stay pretty active, physically, mentally, spiritually. I'm at that, everybody has seasons. I'm probably at that season where I'm at the intersection of learn, grow, give, and serve.
Mm.
At every given time, am I learning? Am I growing? Am I giving? Am I serving? Learning new things, growing as an individual, giving time for my family, serving my community. Where can I look at opportunities to spend my time there, my energy there? So that's pretty much what I've been doing since the last time we talked.
Yeah.
And so it's been kind of exciting. I don't, like I said, I think on the first time I mentioned, I don't feel tired, so I call it refreshment.
Right.
So I feel more fresh than tired. So I'm
Yeah.
having good experiences.
That's all awesome stuff. And that's why you're the right guy to bring on for this conversation. But I'll ask you before we jump in,
Yeah.
how's the pickleball game? I know you're a player. Are you?
Well, I didn't want to bring that up because I injured myself.
Oh,
And it just shows the age, right? I should have rested my wrists. I didn't, and I played too much on Thursday, and it just flared up. So,
oh,
and when you're old like me, you feel every ache and pain. So, but I still love it. I
right.
enjoy it. My wife plays a lot more than me. She's a lot better than me. So, it's a great community, good friends.
Oh, yeah.
And we get out at 6:15 in the morning and get her done. And, we got the whole day ahead of us. So
Once those competitive juices start flowing, those injuries start coming, the older you get.
for real, I just gotta realize my limitations. That's it.
All right, awesome. Well, that's great. I'm glad to have you on here. So this episode is going to be I call it beyond the numbers, right? Because what we do on the show is we do
Mhm.
a lot of retirement planning, a lot of talking about the rules and the taxes and Roth conversions and how to do whatever it might be. But you know, the numbers in the spreadsheets, some people who are really good at this stuff, a lot of do-it-yourselfers, it can consume you to where
Mhm.
it becomes your focal point. And it's good to break out of that and remember, this is just one part of the puzzle there. And I like I don't know if you heard of Naval Ravikant. He's really kind of he's a venture capitalist. He's got some good philosophical stuff out there, but he says money is a tool, not the goal itself. And the reason to win the game is to be free from it, right? And I
Yeah,
I
I like
think
that. Yeah,
I think that's the message I kind of want to get across here on these episodes.
cool.
So what we'll do is we'll go down a list. I picked nine of your posts out from LinkedIn, and again, I encourage anybody who's interested to give you a follow there. You got some good posts,
Well,
and
what I've learned about, posting on LinkedIn is, there's some common themes I think that come across on my posts. And I thought I'd just share it before we go down
sure,
but there's some common themes that could be are I think valuable in just leadership traits or um, just being present type of traits. Like I've become very much more self-aware and self-reflective since I retired, which I should have been a lot more when I was still working. That's such an important approach to the mindset that we need.
Hmm.
Um, and some of the common themes is really while you reflect, are you aligning to your core values?
Hmm.
Sometimes we stray, our behaviors, our mindset stray from our core values, and sometimes what I want to try to communicate in my posts is that we often have to go back to make sure we're doing the right thing, go back to our core values.
Hmm.
And then there's a lot of time there's so much distractions that where do we focus our priorities? And so, when I post, it's usually through some self-reflection. I have no themes really in mind, but it's things that I may have encountered through experience maybe that week
Hmm.
or with my grandkids but
But
it's
it's
something that
something
I
that I
share
share.
so that, it can potentially help others.
Sure, and I think it absolutely does that. And yeah, you can draw a lot of parallels between these themes and leadership and health and fitness and
Mhm.
investments. I mean, a lot of this stuff carries over.
Yep.
But I think to kick it off, so here's the first one here, and you titled it "How's Your Investment Portfolio Going?" And in this, you draw parallels between investments and other things in life, right? And you say, I wish I knew the value of having an investment strategy earlier in my life. My main investment involves spending hours at work with minimal diversity into other areas. And then you outline this investment strategy that you kind of were reflecting on and aligned to. And the points there are invest early, where you mention time with your grandchildren. You say invest regularly, where you mention health, exercise, and sleep. Invest enough. And I like what you said here. I will never have enough to invest in everything I want to, but I know I have enough to invest in everything I need to. Great point there. And you end it with have a plan, discipline and commitment, and then diversify your portfolio. My biggest and hardest lesson, I piled my investments in just a few high risk areas: work, worry, control. Once I understood the value of a diverse investment portfolio, I realized dividends in increased connections and relationships, and a surge of energy and uptick in learning and growing. So it's a great post, and I think, like we were just saying, you can draw so many parallels between, uh, you know, fitness, finance, work. You could take things you learn from your personal life, translate it to work. Things you learn from work, translate it to personal
Exactly.
life. And yeah, I think it's a great post and a great parallel there.
I think, when we talk about investments, we always go financial investments. But really, when I first said, I'm very intentional where I spend my energy now, I think we need to go look at our investment in our energy. Um, and again, there may be stages in your life you spend a little bit more time in other areas.
Hmm.
Um, so, I think it's just taking inventory of where you spend your time. Until I started really tracking where I spent my time, I didn't realize that my investments were unbalanced. So, to me, one of the recommendations I would do is really track where you spend your energy. Track it, find it, and is it the right balance in all the important things in your life?
Sure. And then there's no shortcuts, right? You got to put the
For
time
sure.
in. You can't expect results in one area of your life if you're neglecting it.
Right, right, exactly. And I used to say that, there's no such thing as work-life balance. It's just work-life integration. You just got to kind of understand, when you put in the investment and when you got to maybe cash out sometimes.
Sure. Okay, great start. So let's see, move on here. Number two,
Mhm.
influence is the title. Been spending
Mhm.
time at various schools recently, talking to our Kiki and Helmana. I see great future leaders in these young adults. The best is sitting down and talking story with them. When they ask for advice, I usually fall on these five themes. Okay, so here are the five themes you outline here. Be authentic, know your biases, don't be judgmental, understand the big picture when making decisions. And I like what you say here, do what's best for the greater good, which sometimes is hard to do. Communication and collaboration are key skills to constantly learn, implement, and improve. And lastly, the best way to learn is through networking, mentoring, and trying and failing. I found that I learn best by observing others. Networking is an excellent way to gain perspective. Mentoring helped me focus on target specific skill development, but failing, although very hard to accept, was my greatest teacher of all.
Mm.
It takes courage to try something challenging and be creative or think outside the box. But this is where our best learning starts. Take risks, solve big problems, be consistent, and a constant learner. Another great post about influencing. I'm sure you've served in so many mentor roles throughout your professional career, your personal life, and now, in what you're doing now. Yeah, and that's a great thing to give back. As a mentor, I'm sure you find that sometimes people need to learn the hard way, despite
Mhm.
all the knowledge you might have and what you want to pass along. No matter how much you convey these five themes, be authentic, know your biases, understand the big picture, communication, collaboration, and networking, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And when it comes to mentoring, I was fortunate to be mentored up as well.
Mm.
Some of my, I would ask an apprentice, a machinist apprentice, to be one of my mentors so that I could understand what, the new employees are coming through the shipyard, what are they experiencing, what can you teach me
Mhm.
of, what should be changing. But mentorship is almost like situational leadership. It depends on the individual, it depends on the needs. This post, if I recall, is kind of reflecting of it. It's almost asking people to reflect what are those key leadership characteristics that we should be emphasizing periodically.
Mhm.
We may have top five, but there's times when I step into a school that I may use different leadership competencies that I may want to communicate. I think in all cases, communications and relationships are the one of the most important type of leadership competencies, building relationships, effective communication. I think those are, just all around important. But even like keeping your ego in check and being humble. Why is that important? Because you do become a lifelong learner. Um, so it's really is we're all leaders, no matter what even work position. But as parents, as a coach, we're all leaders. So what are you doing? How are you influencing the
Right.
people you lead? And this was just kind of some ideas of you know that popped into my mind during that time. I
Sure.
talked about it.
And I think a lot of people associate being a mentor with you need to communicate, but sometimes communication can be nonverbal as well, and you can just live it, right? You live it,
Yeah,
and you can influence and mentor that way.
right. Model. When you
Yeah,
model that behavior, it's like, yeah, I learned a lot from people that I observed their behavior.
sure. Okay, so let's roll on to the next one here. You titled this one Clarifying Responsibility, Authority, and Accountability. I really like this. This kind of hits on the leadership aspect. So, I've been spending some time with various leaders these past few weeks and listening to common leadership challenges they are encountering. It made me think of similar challenges I experienced in my career. You go on to say clarity of organizational and individual purpose, clarity of expectations, clarifying alignment to the vision. And then you mentioned the discussion led to clarity of three key areas, and these areas were responsibility, authority, and accountability. And I think those are it's just a simple one, two, three straightforward way of kind of laying out leadership, right? Responsibility, authority, and accountability. Those are the three pillars, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a great post. You want to elaborate a little on those three?
Yeah. So, I used to just take each one individually, but then I realized you got to integrate all three to really understand, the significance of all three. Usually I would find that responsibility was often not clearly communicated what individuals really responsibility is. I often wrote it down so that we were very clear. I grew up with principles, especially when I was in the nuclear program. Principles of if you don't write it down, you don't understand it. The devil's in the details. I'm my own worst critic. Those kind of principles. But communicating clear responsibilities of the individual and their responsibility to the rest of the team is so important because then you can give authority to that individual,
Right.
their real authority, their real responsibility. And then instead of what we used to always say, hold them accountable, it's really developing accountable people where they're first
Mm,
and foremost most accountable to themselves. That's how you develop the individual to be an accountable person
mhm.
versus, a lot of times accountability comes across as discipline, which really it's not. It's communicating, how well you're doing on expectations and how well, are you managing your authority that I'm giving you. So, that was just a kind of reminder that, clarity of responsibilities is important. Giving authority is even more important because that means you don't, you want to control everything if you don't give authority.
Right.
And then developing that accountable person because being self-accountable is first the most important part.
Sure. And I think giving authority to somebody will in turn make them accountable, right?
I think so.
And
Yeah,
and
exactly.
and when you got to have some organizations got to be top down in some regards, right? It's not just an all or none. You don't just give
Right.
account authority and to everybody. Um, but yeah, I heard this quote the other day and I really loved it and it made me think of this. It said, there are times when we should push authority to those with information instead of push information to those with
Mm.
authority.
Yeah, I
Don't
like
you love
that.
that?
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah. It's
so
awesome.
good.
Yeah, I like that.
And I think people, sometimes leaders have a hard time. Give me the information and I'll make the call.
Right,
It's like, hey, if you got boots on the ground on a job, I mean, these are the guys, right? Whether that's in
right.
the office or at the shipyard, or right, they know.
Correct.
So
They
empower
know.
them to
Yeah,
make the call, right?
right. And I'm still responsible for the final decision. So,
Sure,
so I'm responsible to develop them of their responsibilities so that I can, give them authority.
right. Okay, so moving along here, taking things for granted.
No.
And again, use the term refreshment, which I love instead of retirement. In refreshment, I have the opportunity to slow down, reflect, and learn on past experiences. So oftentimes, or often during my reflections, taking things for granted has become a common theme. And you mentioned too often I let the hustle of the day, the distraction of the hour, the pain of the moment take away from my focus on being thankful and grateful for the opportunities and challenges. Three areas in particular that you mentioned taking for granted were experiences, relationships, and health. I mean, kind of everybody knows this stuff, but still yet
Mm.
we take it for granted, right? This isn't some revolutionary,
No,
thought, and not to discredit your post, but what
no,
I mean?
no.
Everybody knows it,
Yeah,
but
right.
it's circling back to really hone in on it. I think it's hard for us to do.
So the key is like, how do we recognize, you know, everything that happens or everything that we do is something special about it?
Hmm.
And how do we keep that in mind? And how do we, you know, have a grateful mindset versus a scarcity mindset,
Mm.
Um, but we we I'm certain we all take things for granted. Like
Oh,
my
sure.
I have my grandkids for 2 weeks. They stay with us 2 weeks every summer. Oh man, at the end of 2 weeks, I'm getting tired. Just getting, wow, can't wait till you go home.
Mm.
And sure enough, the day after, I took it for granted. I missed them
Right.
already, right?
Right.
So I think we got to find a way to remind us that we're blessed, we're grateful for the small things, even challenges. Um, and and too often we don't remind ourselves that. We, get pissed off at something and go on to the next thing.
Sure. And I think what are your thoughts around, from what I see, we live in the 24-hour news cycle.
Mm.
We're on the phones, a lot of stimulation, and it's constantly this on to the next thing kind of, at least, generally speaking, not
Hmm.
everybody falls into
Yeah.
that. But I think that contributes as well as the comparison culture. And
Oh
social
yeah, I like that.
social media does a lot of great things. Everybody's kind of coming to learn about the negative things as well.
Yep.
And I think the comparison culture and the
Yep.
24-hour news cycle, what's happening next, what's the new headline, I mean, it plays right into it. It's hard to take for granted. You're kind of going upstream,
Hmm.
fighting this friction in order to stop and reflect and take and be grateful.
And that's why my comment when we first started is that there needs to be some time that you reflect back on your core values.
Mm,
Why are you doing what you're doing? Um, because it's all around us. I mean, there's that comparison culture, the distractions.
right.
Um, so many things can get us pissed off every day if we let it happen.
Sure.
And so it really takes um, intentional effort to have your mindset that don't take things for granted.
Sure. Are you so I hate using the term, are you meditation?
No,
Because
I don't. I
meditation can mean a lot of different
right.
things, right? It can get real woo-woo, but like I look at meditation as just sit still and take a moment to reflect.
That's me.
Do you do some
That
meditating? Do you have to schedule time
I,
to
I yeah, always in the first thing in the morning. But I could never meditate because my mind kind of. But I do try to breathe
Mhm.
and just clear my head as much as possible. It's first thing in the morning as soon as I get up.
Mm,
And usually that's where the posts come out.
mm,
The thoughts for the posts come out is when I'm taking that time to just, no phone, no TV, no nothing, just breathe and
right.
um, try to clear your mind. Yeah, I think it's important. I think,
Oh,
having
absolutely.
that reflective time is important. Yeah,
Yeah. Especially in a world that
cool.
seems to more and more push us to hustle and react and go. I mean, the more it
Yeah,
pushes us in that direction, it's good to kind of pull back.
yeah, I'm with you.
Okay, wealth is more than money. Too often, society rates success by how wealthy we are, money-wise. Sure, financial independence is very important. In fact, I would say in general, financial literacy and education is lacking. However, there's so much wealth we experience that we may take for granted. Wealth of relationships, wealth of time, wealth of experiences, wealth of health, wealth of learning. Sometimes I need to pause, tell myself how grateful I am to be so wealthy. Invest in your assets, relationships, time, experiences, health, and learning. That's a pretty darn good portfolio. And there was a book recently that came out called The Five Types of Wealth by Sahil Bloom. I hope that's his name.
Hmm.
It's a little bit different than yours, but it was time wealth, social wealth, mental wealth, physical wealth,
I
and
remember that.
financial
Yep.
wealth. Um, and yeah, I mean, I think you spot on. Everybody's focused on the financial wealth, but what a luxury if you have a lot of time on your hands, or you have really great relationships. I mean, control of
Yeah.
your time. You're not pulled in all these directions, or you're in great health. I mean,
Yeah.
what a luxury. I mean, that's the ultimate one, right? If you're not healthy,
Right.
what does anything else matter?
The one thing that I didn't realize was the wealth of experiences, both good and bad.
Mm,
Just I mean, just learning from those experiences and growing from those experiences. Um, I mean, primarily the good ones, but even the bad ones. I think we talked about some of the more challenging experiences at the shipyard. When I look back, wow, it was the worst days of my career, but it was also, I did have a lot of investments from those experiences in, how I behave, how I react, what's my mindset. So I think we got to recognize there's wealth in many, many areas.
sure.
And again, it goes back to don't take it for granted. We could learn from that and remember wealth is one of the things about wealth too is, you know, really wealthy people, in my opinion, are the ones who give it away.
Mm,
So whatever, we collect, if we can give it away more, then we become even more wealthier.
sure. And I wonder, you know, it seems like the overall, and again, you don't know if this is to be true because a lot of times you hear things, you read things, you step out your front door, and it's a different world than what we're being told.
Yeah.
But money is a huge problem, especially
Oh,
here,
big.
here
Yeah.
in here in Hawaii. And those financial problems, I mean, the studies show it's like the number one stress for relationships
Oh,
breaking
yeah.
up. It causes all these things, and so it can be such a focal point. But I think people understanding that and identifying what's enough to where, okay, I have enough that my financial problems aren't going to bleed into these other areas and I can focus on those. Yeah.
Yeah. But, go find help for the financial help, you know,
Right.
find people like you, um, be mentored, um, be trained, and start early
Right.
because, with financial stability, you can go, not worry about a lot of other things. So, I
Sure.
mean, I think there needs to be an emphasis, early childhood emphasis
Yeah.
on managing finances. So
Sure.
I'm gonna keep beating that drum until people understand that one because that's the truth. It affects a lot of all aspects of your life.
Right. And I always like to throw this quote in too from Coco Chanel because oftentimes people feel like the people with money, it's easy to say other,
Hmm.
money's not all about and all that. But I love Coco Chanel's quote, and it's kind of in defense of money. The best things in life are free. The second best things are very, very expensive. And
Yeah.
and the point there is that, money is great. It's a tool, right? And it can buy great experiences. It can buy,
Yeah.
great things. It's not to completely shun money in the priority, the pecking order with everything else.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
And then just like us too. I mean, we still got our 2001 Forerunner. We just, you live within your means and you invest in what you want to, what you
sure.
need to.
All right. The value of focused goal setting. Last week, I observed a part of a well organized goal setting workshop. It was on a ranch in one of the most beautiful parts of the island. It was attended by a diverse group of individuals wanting to learn and grow, and it was facilitated by like minded leaders and professional coaches. It reminded me the value of focused goal setting. Having specific goals is a great outcome, but the process and approach we take in establishing goals provides an opportunity to work on our mindset, our attitude, our vision towards our future. I call it the 6 A's to focus goal setting, and they are awakening, awareness, acceptance, achievement, action, and accountability. And when I read this, I like how you broke it down because the first three, awakening, awareness, and acceptance, that's almost the precursor to the actual
Yeah.
achievement, action, and accountability. I love that there.
Right. Yeah. And sometimes we skip those steps. We just go right to the action.
Right.
Sometimes you gotta really understand where you want to go before you want to really understand how you're going to get there.
Sure.
And I think one of the things too is that some of our goals may change as we learn more things.
Hmm.
Um, but the important part is being aware, accepting where you're at now, because you need to be truthful with yourself where you're at to really understand where you want to go. And sometimes we kind of fake ourselves. I used to do that, like, oh, we're way beyond that. It's going to be an easy goal.
Mm.
And come to find out, I'm just BSing myself. I really got to know where I'm at to know where I'm going. And that includes in your relationships with who you're sharing that goal with.
Mm.
Like family goals are challenging
Hmm.
because we all got to be consistent in acknowledging where we're at. So, but I think, and my wife and I, we used to go on these offsites and list down our goals. But if you don't write it down and you don't write down the actions, it's really kind of, you know, it it's really not a focused effort on trying to reach your real goals.
Yeah, and I think I'm sure a lot of people end up chasing down what they think was a goal, but they get kind of pushed towards an objective that the currents kind of push them in that direction, and they get there and say, "Wait a second, why was I going in this direction?" And that's where
Yeah.
that awareness,
Yeah,
really comes in.
exactly. And accountability,
Sure.
you know, making sure you're staying on task.
Yeah. Okay, common sense, not so common nowadays. Love this one. Common sense. I don't think I even know what that means anymore. It used to be easy to observe, Get out of the rain, look both ways before crossing the street, be early for your job interview. Now I'm observing more common nonsense or uncommon sense, coming to conclusions with no facts to support it, selfishly showing up late with no regret, lack of self accountability for errors. I think there are many factors for this drift from common sense. The world and our society are so much more complex. New challenges occur daily. There appears to be inconsistent in values, not necessarily bad, rapid information transfer, and growing popularity of individualism. I love what you did there in that, it's really easy to say, oh, there's no common sense and not give credit to the environmental, the societal
Right, right,
pressures that are going on. It's not like people are all of a sudden, you know, not trying not to have common sense, right?
right.
There's some reason for this. There's something pushing that way, and I love that you kind of you laid that out there.
So one of the things I think that we should normalize is, and I mentioned this before, which is important, self-awareness.
Mm.
I mean, you just look around and you can see, wow, that person is really self-aware. That person is not even aware what they're doing or what they're thinking. But if we normalize self-awareness, what am I doing? Why am I doing it? Being very self-aware. The other one is, why can't we normalize respect?
Mm.
It's just kills me to see how much disrespect on a day-to-day basis that I hear or I see, I observe, or I act sometimes.
Mhm.
And that's why, for me, it's the third thing that I would bring up is really going back to your core values. Like one of my core values is respect. I grew up with respect. That was one of our, but then I clearly recognize when I'm disrespectful and I got to change that. But, are we really living our core values? Are we behaving? Are we modeling our core values? And sometimes, common sense is just your alignment with your core values, you know?
Yeah,
So
and I think
sometimes
community,
you just got to be aware of that.
and I think placing community above individualism. I mean, it doesn't have you got to take care of yourself first. But I mean, that's the beautiful thing about Hawaii, and I'm sure we've all traveled to the
Yeah.
mainland. It's a different culture, and I think I guess I think the common sense, putting community first, it helps that self-awareness. It helps to kind of sit back and say, how am I
Yeah. Yeah.
contributing and helping people, and in turn increases common sense. One other thing, have you ever heard the questionnaire about the study on good drivers? And I guess they ask
No.
they ask all these people, do you consider yourself an above average driver, right? And 90% say yes, which tells you that's impossible. But it's just that
Yeah.
it's just I
We
think
think
innately human
yeah.
human nature, we all think we're kind of I don't
Yeah.
know.
That's
Better,
me. I think I'm a great driver, and my wife tells me I'm a terrible driver, and that's a lack of self-awareness on my part.
right. That's good. I think I don't want to generalize here, but I think a lot of my wife does the same thing. I think a lot of people in relationships find that one spouse thinks the other is a terrible driver. Okay, the story of the endless battle between ego and humility. This kind of ties into the self-awareness. When I retired 3 years ago, it took about 2 months to lose 10 pounds. No diet, maybe more activity. I told everyone it was 10 pounds of stress. My wife decided to weigh in and said it was more like 10 pounds of ego. She was probably right, but I told her I got a lot more ego to go around. In fact, my inability of consistently quiet my ego is probably my biggest nemesis. When it kicks in, there are many behaviors: lack of patience, ignoring creative and innovative ideas, controlling outcomes, being judgmental, never admitting I'm wrong. And then you go on to say, and this is critical, is we all have egos. Essentially, it's the weight of our ego that'll determine our behaviors. Finding the sweet spot between ego and confidence is necessary. And I think that's a great point. And again, this speaks to leaders, especially people who are in, higher up in leadership. Or if you're just in maybe it's not leadership, but you're in some position where people are looking up to you. It's real easy to drink the Kool-Aid and start to let that ego
Oh yeah.
grow and grow.
Oh yeah. I experienced that. But I think this one is a recognition that ego will never go away.
Mm,
It's just how do you respond or react to it? Ego kind of stands for edging God out. I saw that by
mm,
somebody, and we all have egos, and sometimes having that ego is valuable for some teams, but it's really finding that balance between that confidence that you have in ego and your
right.
humility. Because one of the things I've learned, the greatest challenge of having a big ego is the of, you know, lack of really expanding your ability to learn.
Mm,
Once you stop learning, you're dead. So
sure.
the ego can suppress the learning, and the more you can control that part so that you're always a continuous learner, you can always, grow and get better and experience more things. So to me, that's why controlling the ego is important, is that you don't want to suppress learning.
Yeah, but I like the dichotomy there because, like you said, you need the ego, right? And if you're
Yep,
the
yeah,
leader,
yeah.
you kind of need, unwarranted confidence at times because people are
Yep.
looking to you, right?
Yep,
And
exactly. Right.
it's like the athletes. Like, what do you think about athletes you watch on TV? I'm a big sports guy, right? And you
Right.
see, I don't know, I'm a big Philadelphia Eagles fan. You got AJ Brown, he's out there
Yep.
talking all this smack, and I look at it as someone could say, "Oh, his ego is so big," but to perform at that level, he's got to
Yeah.
operate in that space. Now, off the field, he should definitely,
Yeah.
wrestle with that and pull that in, right? But there is a place for ego.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely there is a place.
Yeah,
And it's valuable at times.
right, right. All right, so this is a good place to wrap it up. Kaipo, I
Mhm.
appreciate your time here.
Yeah.
The last one, it is when everything seems hopeless, be hopeful. Sometimes we feel hopeless, probably because we can't control everything that goes on in our lives. Hopelessness can be an emotion and a mindset. We control our emotions, and we also control our mindset, either negative or positive. There's so many times I get frustrated by seeing and experiencing shortcomings occurring all around the workplace, our communities, and society. It can become a hopeless proposition. But then it just takes a mindset change, a positive experience, or an interaction with someone I value, and hopelessness transforms into hopefulness. Be hopeful. It's a state of mind and attitude. There are positive outcomes by being hopeful. I love that. I think every generation feels like they're in a time of the most
Mm.
hardship. But I feel today, and maybe I'm just falling victim to the recency bias here, but there is a lot of hopelessness out there. There's not a lot of
Hmm.
people who are championing things are going to be okay. And,
Yeah.
with all these, you got the geopolitics, you got AI, you got all this stuff going on, but there's something to be said for standing in the face of all that adversity, all the challenge, and being the one who chooses to be hopeful. Yeah.
Yeah. And let me tell you, what really pushes my hope is the young people I meet
Mm,
frequently. I just went to the trades graduation at Pearl Harbor Naval Shipyard, seeing these young leaders and not so young leaders in the trades program that get up there and talk, and that gives me hope that our future is pretty solid.
mm.
Every time I interact with people is when I'm probably most hopeful. Um, and so I think we have an opportunity to kind of build that hope up. And I think I said in my post, hope is not action. Hope is a mindset,
Mm.
but it's to, pass on that positive mindset and then create or influence action to get to where we want to be. So to me, it's, I'm really hopeful just because of the interactions I've had with the school kids or Hamana, or I don't know. It's just awesome to see growth like that.
Awesome. Kaipo, I love it. I love everything you're about. I look forward to continuing to follow you on LinkedIn, and thanks so much.
Yeah.
Anything
No,
else before we sign off?
no, I appreciate what you're doing, Jason, and thank you for this opportunity. We had
Sure.
good discussion.
Let's
Appreciate
just do
it.
it again in another couple years.
Sounds good.
Okay.
All right, thanks.
The opinions and statements presented on this show are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations. Never make any investment or financial decisions based on information offered on this show without first consulting your financial, legal, or tax advisor. All economic and performance information mentioned on the show is historical in nature and is not indicative of any future results. All indices mentioned on this show are unmanaged and cannot be invested in directly. All information is believed to be from reliable sources. However, we make no representation as to its completeness or accuracy. Lastly, all opinions expressed by Jason Katita and any guests on the show are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinions of or are endorsed by Toba Financial. For Jason Katita, investment advisory services are offered through Toba Financial LLC, a registered investment advisor offering advisory services in the state of Hawaii and in other jurisdictions where exempt from registration.